Cool. And I think I'm live. You're not getting anybody. Yeah, dropping things. Sure this thing's working. I don't know. I know I can go get John. I have nobody. Interesting. Yeah, let's see. Completely white on there. That's would be. Okay, well, we're 5 minutes in and nobody. Can I have it any different, Rodney? Probably not. And somebody took it all away from me. Nobody. Hey, Randy, can you hear me? I'm hoping everything's working. I gotta start making a reminder video again because this way ain't working. Somebody else is live at this time. The certain somebody took all the audience away from me because I wasn't on here for a whole year, so or well, I was off. I was on off and on that year, but it wasn't many times. But it's all right. That person has been blocked because he's made rude comments to my channel, and he got blocked. So I probably won't stay on here because I didn't make a video like I should have. This was one of those spur of the moment things. Just decide to go live and see what happens. So there's always tomorrow night or next Thursday. I can always try Fallen Flags Friday tomorrow night. So I guess you've been working on your railroad and or your layout and all that good stuff. Maybe even no, not right. Not much railroad. I think I tried this last week or the Thursday before, and I think Joe Rader actually came in for a few minutes with me. He was the only one. Well, looks like Randy's Rock and Roll Railroad is this week. Yeah, I got to figure out how to make my channel better so I can get back into this. I don't know, people ranting about stuff and then, you know, crying and bashing me and all that about my channel, and I don't know, people's taking the fun out of it. And then all these videos about the hobby dying, that's really kind of took the fun out of it because everybody's just making the same videos. The only thing, my personal opinion, what's going to kill the hobby is the prices and the young generation that don't want to be interested in it to follow along in the older the older generation's footsteps of it. I mean, if you don't teach your kid about it and let them watch your model railroad or give them a plastic train or battery train or whatever, they're not going to get interested in anything if they don't see real trains on YouTube or anything like that. Hey, Sean, one of those names, Pennywise and Minster Railroad. I haven't seen you for a long time. Nice to have you in here. I probably won't be on very much longer though, because I don't see me getting too many people in here. I didn't do a video to give anybody a warning that I was coming on the air. So yeah, it has been a while. A long while. Yeah, I want to try to get back into this, but like I said before, it's people doing the hobby dying videos and people, some people's busy on a Thursday night, some people's busy on a Friday night because you want to get together with your family and go out to eat on a Friday night if people actually still do that. Yes, I know. I don't even want to. I don't even want to mention his name in here. He's. I realize part of it is actually my doings because I wasn't on here for a full year. I was in and out of my channel and doing live streams, but somebody took all my okay, Randy. Thanks for dropping in, buddy. But somebody took all the audience that I once had, or part of them anyway, at least 16 of them. But that's all right. Certain somebody ain't no longer the friend, no longer a subscriber. Somebody ran their mouth and about it, and it's okay. Enough about that rant. What else we done in here? I'll just put somebody else. Okay, guys. Well, I'm going to get off of here. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's just it's been a while back, but it irritates you because you once had this time spot and you can't control when life gets in the way for a year or over a year, to be away from YouTube. I didn't want to be away from YouTube, but I didn't have a choice. I was busy. I had family issues and stuff like that. And, somebody else took over the time spot and took everybody. It's fine. I mean, I'll get somebody back someday. But, it is what it is. Partially my fault, but somebody, I guess, just figured, hey, he ain't live streaming no more. Let's steal his spot. So, like I said, it's in the past, under the bridge, unsubscribed, unfriended. I'm over it anyway. So, yes, it does. Yes, it does. I mean, I'm lucky I can make it on here tonight. I mean, it's just it's it's a very hard time. A bunch of stuff going on at the same time, and of course, the way the outside world is, shall we say, it's it's not getting better, and it's just changed a lot of stuff, and life gets in the way. So thank you both for coming in, Randy and Sean or Stan. Yeah, Sean, I think is your name. Is that G scale, O scale tracks behind you? Mm, oh, on my picture, that is my old HO layout down in the shed. That's where this, well, I'm not going to be able to point to it with the cursor, but I don't think I'm going to be able to point to it. Back, yeah, I'm going to disappear. But back at that tunnel on my left, yes, it's a green screen. I took a picture and snapped a picture of it. It's actually backwards. Um, I don't know if I can even fix that, honestly. Let me see if I can. Yeah, it should be like that. But anyway, yeah. On this side, where my hand is at that tunnel, those are stacked tunnels. One was supposed to be a trolley track up top, and the bottom one was actually going to go across the removable bridge in front of the shed door. And then the one on this side is actually a culvert. And if you notice that split on the tops of them, they're actually removable. I can pull them out. I made them so they just slipped in there with little supports in behind them so it wouldn't go on cave in. Well, I made them so they slip in and was removable, and that's what I call peekaboo. What did I call that? I called it the peekaboo tunnel, but basically it was supposed to be where actual water was coming out from underneath and going into like a creek or creek or some kind of small river or something, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't going to be very big. It was just going to be, where it would run off the top mountain and down underneath that girder bridge where the trolley would come across and drop down and come out the culvert. So there was like a waterfall or something up there on the mountain that was actually supposed to be there too, but like more or less like a spring, but it was also a runoff to make it have like a river effect type looking thing, but it never happened. So all that got built, and now part of it's probably going to get tore down because I'm possibly going to have a new layout here in the basement of the house if I ever get the basement cleaned up. But it's just too cold out there in the shed during the winter, and too hot during the summer. And in here, you control all that. The heat rises, obviously. Everybody knows that. The heat rises from the basement, and it's cool down here during the summer and during the winter. I mean, it's got heat and everything down here. It's just, but I was looking at the pros and cons. Out there, you don't have a bathroom. In here, you have a bathroom. Out there, you only have a little propane heater. In here, you got house heat and a fireplace that you could that I could burn if I wanted to. And in here, the climate would be more controlled because it would be cool, sometimes warm, depending on, the day and how hot it is outside. If it stays warmer down here, with the heat circulating all through the house on a normal hot day without the heat turned on in here, of course. But yes, yes. So I started looking at the pros and cons of all this. My dad's old trains are all Lionel, and of course they're all that, the gunmetal or whatever they want to call it. And that stuff, the when it's cold, the metal, of course, the metal's cold, and your paint chips here and there. And then, when it's hot out, then I got to run an air conditioner down there and in the one door that's blocked. And the only way that I can get the place to cool, you have to start at like an hour, hour and a half before you even bother going down there to, actually take some of the heat out. And then the roof started leaking, and I tried to patch that several times, but evidently there's where I'm patching it at isn't fixing the leak. It's got to be somewhere else and running down instead of where I'm thinking that it is. And I mean, I've patched a good part of the roof, and when we get a big heavy storm and rainstorm and that kind of stuff here, it just leaks like crazy down there in the same spots. So I got to a point that I had to tear up Dad's track, part of my HO stuff, where it was leaking, and I just came to a point. It's, my dad's gone. My dad's been gone since 2018, and I've got all his trains and all my trains. It's just time to move it somewhere like here in the basement, because I live in part or half of the basement is going to be where I sleep and watch TV and do all that. And then the other half I'm planning on having a big layout in. And really the basement ain't really the half that I'm going to use for the layout isn't much bigger than the shed. So I mean I may lose a few feet, but I'm going to make it so I can walk around it. Even though it ain't DCC, it's still all DC, but I'm going to make it to where, I want it where it's a point to point, plus I can run trains continuously and have switching if I want it. In the point to point yards, it's basically going to go from what I'm going to call Cumberland, Maryland to Hagerstown, Maryland's yard, where stuff can get switched out into classification tracks and so forth. And then trains will go from the Hagerstown yard to Baltimore, where it'll dead end on the other end of the point to point, and it'll have its own yard where the trains will pull in. I'll, take the locomotive off or whatever and off camera and turn it around. Or if you watched Ray Boble's channel, the Bobill in Newtown, it's going to be similar, very similar to what he's doing. And I may even do the drawer, um, idea that he's doing. Only mine will be in, of course, dresser drawers, but his he built his own underneath his car storage system drawers underneath his layout. So when he comes into like Richmond Yard, which is south, he pulls them in, takes everything off, puts it over in the drawer because he goes by car cards, which I'm planning on doing most of the time, and because I'm still thinking about having the same system like he does, the car cards and the drawers. And so when they come into Cumberland, they'll pull in. I'll take everything off and put it in a drawer. Or if I have a big enough yard, I can just pull it in there, remove the locos, and put them over in the fueling facility or the repair facility or whatever. And those cars will sit there if it's a big enough yard. If it's not a big enough yard for enough tracks, then obviously I'll take it off, put it over in the drawer with the car cards, and go through like Ray does with his, put them on a schedule, and where the cars that will go to in the middle of the two of Cumberland and Baltimore in the Hagerstown yard, they'll pull in, they'll sit there, they'll be like locals, um, but they'll still get switched around and they'll be able to go to Cumberland or Baltimore, whichever way they're scheduled for. I've I've got I've got all these ideas in my head. I've been trying to draw stuff and everything to try to get a vision of different things I want. And I mean, it's coming to me, but a lot of days, it'll be just what you said in your comment, hit and miss type things. If it's stuck in my head and I'm doing something, I gotta stop and I gotta go write it down or draw it because it'll go right back out of my head if I don't. So I mean it's a slow process, but I figure it's probably, well, it's going to stay a slow process for a long time because I'm still cleaning the basement up. I've still got part of, or a lot of the layout down there to tear down, and then I'm going to have to truck all that stuff up the yard into here. Anything that's in here that shouldn't be here needs to go elsewhere. Um, which railroad is in Hagerstown and Cumberland and Baltimore? Um, I'm going for an era of between 19 somewhere in the 50s to the present. So we're talking B&O, C&O, Reading, um, Pennsylvania, Penn Central, um, Chessie System, Conrail, Norfolk Southern, Norfolk Western, CSX, obviously, and of course Winchester and Western and Maryland Midland, which is both small short line railroads. One goes from what is that? Can't think of the name, down towards Baltimore. Yes, yes. I want to be able to run my older railroad stuff and the newer railroad stuff. So, being that it's going to be between the 50s to the present, um, anything technically, in other words, and easier words, it's going to be anything that I feel like running. Union Pacific, BNSF, um, any of those, CSX, all the older ones and the newer ones. So, or the more newer names that everybody's combined it with. So, and then of course I'm going to have a Western Maryland, my Western Maryland steam engines with smoke, and my Western Maryland passenger cars, which I'm lighting up. I've got a Pennsylvania passenger train. I've got some Strasburg Railroad cars that I'm going to throw onto the Western Maryland stuff. And they're just basically going to be up on another level running by themselves as an excursion train. But I'm probably not going to be doing like sometimes I'm thinking of doing it something similar to what Strasburg does, where they'll take you to Paradise, they'll unhook the engine, come around and hook back up and pull you back to actual Strasburg. Well, mine's going to be similar, only mine's going to, the way I have it drawn for the old layout down in the shed, it was going to go around in a circle and come in, unhook, and go on a siding and switch, and then turn itself around and go down and hook back up to the other end and pull it into the yard. And then it was going to do it all over again while the passengers was unloading and loading. The engine would unhook again and come down, turn itself around, and hook back up, because I don't have no front couplers, or I would be able to just, do it the opposite way. I don't think I can put a coupler on the front of the locomotive. Some of them's, built into it as plastic, molded plastic. So if it had it, then, I'd obviously do it. But of course, I've got a set of F7s, I believe they are, in Western Maryland, which might go on there too, pulling sometimes. Or I might even throw them on the back and use them as helpers, and then leave them pull it back. I may even do it that way, because it's going to be like a 11 car passenger train. I mean, it may even be longer than that if I add other cars. I've got all kinds of passenger cars I could decal, probably whatever I wanted to. Now there's also ideas. I've got a big and I don't know if this is really going to make sense to a lot of people, but I'm thinking I had this weird dream one night, okay? And it was taking one particular um, visiting place out of each state, one place out of each state, okay? So, like Mount Rushmore. I've got a big Mount Rushmore replica that actually you turn it on, or you can put it on a plug and, turn it on that way. But it does take batteries or electric, a wall wart. But I'm thinking about putting that in the Baltimore area if I don't do the one thing from each state type deal. And I've seen a White House, HO White House kit, building kit, that I may try to snatch off of eBay sometime and try to build it. And I may have the White House and the Mount Rushmore down there in the Baltimore area together. Or, like I said a couple minutes ago, if I had the room, I could do my dream, what was in my dream the one night, pulling different stuff from one thing from each state and putting it on the layout and having the train go by each one of them. The only problem that I have with that is everything is hundreds to 1,000 miles apart, and it would be combined in the United States map and putting the map right on your layout on on however big the layout is. And I'm sort of against it, the whole idea, because I don't have if I had a big building, it would make sense. It would have a place for the trains to go. But yeah, I mean, this is lucky. It's going to be 21 foot by 8. And plus you also, the 21 by 8 part is probably going to be mostly Lionel stuff that's in levels, because I don't want to stop running my dad's Lionel stuff. I helped him buy a bunch of that stuff off of eBay and his last few years, and I need the money, but I'm afraid to sell it because you might never actually ever have it again. And I mean, it was a father and son layout out there, and I wanted to be somewhat that in memory of him. So I mean, most of the 21 by or 16 or the 21 foot layout is going to be nothing but plywood on the bottom level, and then I'm going to take and put the shells that his part of his trains was or is on. Actually, all his stuff was on shells going around the shed, which is that particle pressed shelf material. Right, right. But me and him put up all those shelves and did everything together down there, and he gave me the main layout, main platform. But problem is down there, you got to get up on that on the layout where my HO stuff is to get to the upper shelves, and I want to try to get away from that. I want to put his trains down in big long ovals like it is down there, only in levels like we have it down there. And then mine will be basically walk around it or walk in front of it and control the trains. That's the reason I thought of this point-to-point thing, you know, let's go from Cumberland to Baltimore and have Hagerstown right in the middle, like it is in real life, and you can run a train from Baltimore to Hagerstown and have it stop, and have another one go to Cumberland, or one coming from Cumberland to Hagerstown, or it could go straight through Hagerstown and go to Baltimore, and then you'd have, that long run point to point. Or you can do switching in the middle, and I'll have industrials on the way, and those three areas, and I'll be able to switch on the way, or I'll have one certain train that has those cars that get switched at the industries that will go and towards Cumberland and switch, or the other one will go towards Baltimore and switch. And then, of course, I'll have it so it switches, and it'll whatever kits I have, there'll be like I think a flour mill for my hoppers, probably grain facilities for because I've got Purina cars that was made by Tyco and all those manufacturers back then. So I want a Purina plant, since there's one here in Williamsport, Maryland, down the road. Well, actually, it ain't. Yeah, it's in Williamsport, but it's actually another part of Williamsport, but it's south of me. So, but I want a Purina plant for like dog food, cat food, and all that. Since I already have those type cars, I've got enough of those to run the place. So probably have one or two tracks, or just have them, so they switch out, and empties on one and empties or full cars on another train, and then pass each other, or pick up empty cars, or whatever. Drop the empty ones off and pick up the full ones. I don't know it. The industrials. I thought about a coal mine because I've got tons of hoppers. I've got hoppers everywhere. So I've got Western Maryland hoppers, Chessie hoppers, CSX hoppers, Pennsylvanias, Sovereigns, all those. Because I also thought of adding like a section of Virginia into my layout, which would actually come across a lift out bridge or swing up bridge, or however I can build it, and it'll come across, and outside this, well, you're not going to see it, but the walls of the office that I'm in. Let me see if I can get rid of this so you can see. There we go. But the walls to the office that I'm in, this outside wall right there, the other side of that in the painted area is going to be where it goes across into like Martinsburg, West Virginia, and down, and that'll be like for Norfolk Southern or Winchester and Western for the short line, because they're out of Gore, Virginia, which is outside Winchester. And because they end up here in Hagerstown. It's a short line, and then they've also got they've got trackage up in New Jersey where Conrail was, and Conrail actually owned the trackage, and then Winchester and Western had rights to it. Of course, Winchester and Western is no longer Winchester and West. Well, it's Winchester and Western, but it's owned by another railroad outfit. They bought them, and then Maryland Midland, that comes from Emery Grove, Maryland. I think it's Emery Grove. It's how you say it. It comes from Emery Grove, Maryland, all the way up to Highfield, which is right at the Pennsylvania state line. So that's just a little small railroad too, and they're now owned by the Genesee and Wyoming Railroad. I think is actually that whoever owns all those little short lines that bought them all up owns Maryland Midland, because the Maryland Midland engines changed their look, and it's the same look as the Genesee and Wyoming and a bunch of other ones. So yeah, I'm thinking about trying to add some kind of yard or something over here to represent the Virginia part of it, and then I'll be able to put the what they call the Barvo yard, which is the north and south yard that Pennsylvania Railroad used to own here in Hagerstown, which is Norfolk Southern now, of course. It used to be Conrail, and it used to be called the Shomo Yard, which was something to do with Shippensburg and Martinsburg. But then, yes. But yeah, they bought a bunch of them up. It's got a whole list of them on their website. I mean, it's and they all got the same logo, just different letters in them. So Maryland Midland is still it's now M and M instead of Maryland Midland written on across it. So I found out that both of those both of them favorite short lines was both sold. Winchester and Western is owned by ONMX rail lines, or it's some new outfit that came in and they bought up a bunch of short line railroads also. So I mean, if the two main places that's buying them all up has anything to do with one another, I don't know that, because it's two different websites, and it doesn't say anything about. All I know, one owns Maryland Midland, changed the graphics and stuff all over their engines, and You know, they're still running. It's just it's a whole different outfit. Winchester and Western, far as I know, they're still running up and down, but from Virginia to Maryland, but they're probably, they're probably changed their logos too. I don't know, being that they're because see I think 70 some percent or 80 low 80% of Winchester and Western is actually owned by Portland Cement, one of them big cement companies. It could be that I'm thinking of Maryland Midland owned by that, but I'm thinking it's Winchester and Western. I think Winchester and Western is stone and that kind gravel and stone and stuff and sand. So I'm thinking it's the cement company that is 80% ownership of Winchester and Western, because I think they went down to a big cement plant all the time and at the industrial line. So, but I'm trying to incorporate stuff in my layout. It's going to be one. I'm thinking it's probably going to be one weird layout because it's going to have different type stuff in it. It's going to have a little bit of switching. It's going to have a yard to switch in. It's going to have the point-to-point yards with the one that's switchable in the middle of the traveling process. And I'm even thinking about having, something different that I've never done before. I'm thinking about laying rails down in the middle of the road and having road or street running. Yes, basically mine's going to be like a photo lanced I had the name for it, and it's going to be almost a lot of, or all of it. Technically, some of it's going to be, a lot of it's going to be photo lanced, but some of it will be, real probably, but most of it's probably going to be the photo. So it's going to be based on the real railroads, but it's not going to be phototypical. Is the word I'm looking for. It's not going to be phototypical. Probably nothing on there that's actually going to be real, besides the actual railroads on the sides of the locomotives and the cars. But yeah, it's going to be an all made up railroad. It's just going to be Ray's is a bridge route from Harrisburg to Richmond, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania to Richmond, Virginia. So mine's basically going to be like a bridge route. Because you cross the Potomac to go to Cumberland, and you cross the Potomac to go to West Virginia and Virginia, or that direction, south. And when you go north, if you go far enough north, you would cross the Susquehanna for Harrisburg, but I don't think I'm going to go that far north and south. Do I think I will ever go DCC? I've got a DCC system, a NCE starter system. Basically, that's just to run whatever DCC I have. When I build the new layout, I am going to put bus wires in and have, the DCC and DC already set up for the future. If I ever would go that way, it's already there. It'll be on, older track, but it'll be good enough, for what I want. Because, I'm not going to be one of these guys where, I'm going to have 2 or 3 people come over and switch my layout. It's just not going to be a good, big enough layout for more than one or 2 people. Me personally, I'd rather do all this stuff myself and, have fun is basically what I'm hoping to have. I just want to watch my trains run, and I want to do something basically like Ray Vogel's doing. Like I said, his is a bridge route, Harrisburg to Richmond and Richmond to Harrisburg. Mine's going to be Cumberland to Hagerstown, Hagerstown to Baltimore, or Baltimore to Cumberland, Cumberland to Baltimore, with Hagerstown in the middle getting bypassed. So, but I just want to be able to have switching on both ends, or where I pull the trains in to their final destinations or their starting destinations, and turn the trains around, do different type trains with different locomotives, and have them, go past one another, back in the hidden part where I'm going to have a hidden yard. I'm going to have Cumberland come up a grade and come up above the yard at Baltimore, because I want to make it look like like Cumberland is actually up on the mountain, which it is. Cumberland is in the mountain of Maryland and Pennsylvania and West Virginia. So I want to make it, so it's 2 different yards, and I'm hoping that yard will be long enough for Baltimore to pull full-size trains in, let them sit, switch them around, and then all I have to do is put a different locomotive on them or whatever, and I won't have to have the drawer system. In the same way of Cumberland, it would come up the grade like it would be climbing the mountain and on the real thing, and it'll come into the Cumberland yard and do the same thing, and it'll be, on top of one another. So I'm out in, oh, okay. So you know where Bedford is. And there's another thing, guys, that I was going to bring up. I told Sean that I was going to have um, a weird structure on my layout, probably down in the Baltimore area. Now, normally you would find um, what is it? Mount Rushmore is the name I'm coming up with. Mount Rushmore. I've got a replica of Mount Rushmore that lights up. That lights up and lights the president's heads up. So I'm going to put that in Baltimore, and I'm going to get a replica of the White House off of eBay that's HO scale, build it, put that down in or in Baltimore area too, even though it'll be like a Baltimore Washington thing, because there will be Amtrak on my layout also, which I'm not too particularly caring about, but it'll be somewhere parked probably. It probably won't run all the time, but it'll be sitting at a station. But if I put Mount Rushmore on the Baltimore end down east, I'm thinking about putting or having Horseshoe Curve up on the Cumberland west end. So that'll be two particular things that don't have nothing to do with Cumberland or Baltimore. The Mount Rushmore and the Horseshoe Curve. Horseshoe Curve is up in Altoona, which is way out of not even close to Cumberland. And of course, Mount Rushmore ain't even nowhere nowhere close here. So I just thought, since I've got that replica and it does have a tunnel underneath of it, it's already got an actual cutout in the replica that that it actually goes on a train layout. It probably came from what's the place that you can buy the train stuff and all from? Um, it's the collector's trains. I can't think of their name. Um, Bradford Exchange. That's where that thing came from, and I gave some guy like $75 for it. He actually bought it new from the Bradford Exchange or the other company that's the name of it too. But he sold it to me for $75. I thought, I could put that down. I could put it on my new layout in the Baltimore area because Baltimore's outside Washington. And then I can, on the west end of my layout at the other point, I could put Horseshoe Curve in as the climbing track going to Cumberland. So, I can make a big circle and then have it switch off and go to the west yard. So I think that would be kind of neat because I always wanted Horseshoe Curve in my layout somehow. Now, I've never personally been to Horseshoe Curve. I attempted to make it there back in 2000. I'm going to say 2009, 2019, 2008, no, 2019, 2021 was the 2021. No, it was 2019, I believe. I lost my dad 2018. 2019, we went up, went to Sparky's, um, a good mix of steam and diesel. I have Western Maryland steam engines that smoke. I might have a couple Pennsylvanias and a B&O. So I mean, like I said, those type engines will be up in the excursion, more in the excursion area than more than down where the diesels are going to be running. I'm almost probably going to have all diesels pulling the actual trains. The locos will be up pulling passenger trains, or if I decide not to run all of them, I'm going to have them on a turntable roundhouse scene where it'll be like Steamtown, sorta. And that's another place that I'd like to really put on there with, which it'll probably be called that. It'll be Steamtown Horseshoe Curve. Um, and there'll be like, an area where they'll have steam engines, um, cabooses, different rolling stock and stuff like that on there. And I mean, it probably won't be working roundhouse or turntables, but they'll be sitting there so everybody can visit. And then, of course, you'll have Horseshoe Curve going around a bunch of stuff up through the mountain with trees and all, where people can just make a day of it and watch the trains and look at all the stuff that's in the museum type area. I mean, will I run them sometimes? Yeah. I mean, I want to run them because if they just sit there, the grease or oil or whatever just dries up, then you get cracked gears from just setting. I mean, on the older stuff, you will, but now here's an interesting thing. I know with DCC it no problem to do where you speed match your engines to pull a train. I came up with an idea that will be basically the same thing, only, it might be two power units pulling, and there'll be a bunch of dummy engines either on the back or in the middle as your DPUs. But no one will really have to know that because it'll just look like, oh yeah, I thought of that, but I should do that. I should put all of them on there, and I'll have Sparky and Heath from Humanity Junction and the plumber 133, I think it is. Well, I guess I don't know if Rick Bailey got scanned or not that one time down from to Modium. I know a bunch of them did it. I know Ray, I don't think did, but I think most of the other ones did. I know Sparky did, and Plummer did, and Steven is his name, and Heath. I think Tom from Tom's Trains and Things did that too. I think he got scanned with a bag of Doritos, I believe, because I think that's what's on Sparky's layout there in the middle of the street, in his street scene. He has the plumber and Tom's Trains and Things and all them standing there rail fanning. So yeah, I'll have to check into those. I personally didn't want to get scanned because I don't know. I'm not the kind of person that's into 3D printing and all that. But you know, yeah, that's what I used to do with when I was a kid. And of course, when you're a kid, you didn't know nothing about, lubricating anything and all that. Well, I evidently ran most of mine to, they didn't run no more. You had a little flame coming out of the motor inside, lighting the inside of the engine up, or the locomotive up, and then smoke would be rolling out the windows and it would finally just quit. So here I am. I still have all those locomotives. It don't have burnt spots or nothing on the shells, but I took, and of course I didn't know better back then when I did this, because I didn't know, you could switch gears or change gears and replace stuff and all that. Well, I took and snipped the gears out of my old Life Likes and Bachmans or whatever I had back then, and I made them dummy units. I kept the contacts, ran it up just the lights, so it would make it look like they was actually motorized and operating too, and that's how I came up with the idea of dummy units. Now all I have to do is find, you know, other wheels and axles and drop them in there, or just take one or two gears out completely and make it free rolling. So, but I like that idea with DC. You can do the same thing as you guys are doing with DCC, only yours is running, obviously. Yours is speed matched, but I can get away with running at least two good engines up front and put dummies in the middle of the train and on the end of the train to make it look like helpers. And if you have them lit up, it just makes it look like they're actually, pulling and pushing. And I've always been like that. I always ran a powered unit and a dummy unit in behind and just had fun, because at that time, back then, you only had the little starter transformers that wasn't much, no more good than to run a cheap set. But I didn't have no choice back then, because that's all I owned. So if I wanted to make a bigger layout, that's all I owned until I got some money together and went and bought something better. But I used to just run a power unit and a dummy unit, make the dummy unit light up, and I was happy. And at least I had a little contest going. So, and it worked. And the nice thing about dummy units, you can have them sitting on sidings or in a yard lit up. And with no gears or just as a actual dummy unit that didn't come with gears in the first place, you can just set them there and have them like they're hooked up to a train, just like you would DCC with some, one of them idling in the yard. You can make the effect the same effect. Yes, Bachmann is bad for their gearing, and I personally don't like Bachmann, but I own a bunch of their stuff. That's, I mean, then again, I also was taking care of my stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying nobody else does. It's just after, they said over time, the gears just split on them. And it just looks like somebody took a knife and or a Dremel and just went, zzzt. That's how bad they are. So, I mean, other than that, I mean, the whole idea of the hobby is to have fun and not let people bother you and bash you because you're all DCC or all DC or both. Being that I'm all DC, that's all I ever known, even though I've got an NCE system, a starter system that I can run a few locomotives with just to have them. Now, will I ever go all DCC? Probably not, because I've got more DC stuff than I would ever have in DCC. Will I ever put the coders in a lot of my older Afrin engines and stuff, or the ready to run stuff wouldn't be hard to do. You just need to get the right, yeah, you just need to get the right decoder that plugs in. If it already has the board in it, get the right decoder and plug it in. I mean, then you're good to go. Me, I would rather. Here's the thing. Would I buy like the upscale decoders and change your factory decoders over? No, because don't have the skills for any of that. Putting a regular decoder in, I would probably have more of a skill for, because all you're doing is, some of them had a switch. You switch from DC to DCC, and you plug the decoder in and run it. To me, I don't really need all that sound. If I have one good locomotive that will have good sound on it, I'll use that locomotive to assimilate the rest of it. All I have to do is have it idling, and I can toot the horn and all that stuff, and nobody's going to know but me which locomotive is actually doing all that. I mean, you might be able to find out on my video when it ain't nowhere near the same area where the engine's coming from or going to, but to me, to afford all that, you almost have to have, for someone like me, I would have to have two jobs. Just one to make money just for trains and one to pay all the frickin' bills they expect you to have or pay. So, but yeah, that's the only way that I could build stuff outside the box, per se. I guess is a good way to, to put, have horseshoe curve on the west end of my layout and use the Mount Rushmore scene down on the east end, even though it ain't east. It's more west for me, but I mean, it would look, to me, it would look good somewhere down in the Baltimore Washington area because it's presidents in the mountain. Even though it's actually what south, I think it's South Dakota is where it actually the real one is in the mountain. So it would actually be south or west from me. Yeah, South Dakota, North Dakota is that way, I guess. Because the only thing that's around me is Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Delaware at the end, Virginia, West Virginia, Ohio's up above Maryland and Pennsylvania. And technically that's it. I mean, and of course, if you go south, you would be Virginia and Georgia, Tennessee, and all those, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Florida. If like I said earlier, if I had property, a big property where I could put up a big building, if I had the money for it, put up a big building, I would probably go all out and try to go from like have a like New Jersey, um, Virginia, New York, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Virginia, and maybe parts of Ohio, and of course Maryland. I would try to figure out how to get the trains to run to different destinations and have scenery breakers, to represent like coming out of this state, crossing over into this state and have a few different things here and there of that particular state and then cross over another direction into another state. And of course, I would have like a commuter train running and different stuff of different places, but I've got to have money and time and stuff invested in it. So what I'm going to try to do, most of the layout down here is going to be O gauge, the old post-war O gauge stuff, and then I'm going to have a simple walk around, stand at type bench type bench work and probably have the HO stuff running on there. And like I said, if I have enough room for big yards where I can put Cumberland up above Baltimore, then Baltimore might be able to shoot a long distance, and Cumberland might be able to shoot a long distance. And I might be able to get the whole trains in there, and then just switch locomotives and switch the cars around to make it look like a different train going to a different destination at a different time. So I mean, the trains that I pull in there, they might not. Am I racing? Yes and no. That is something that's getting more expensive. So that's why I'm trying to decide, do I want to make this my last year and get rid of my car and everything, because they're getting to a point now they want a full containment seat and a fire depression system like NASCAR has. I think that's where the ideas are coming from. NASCAR and other tracks where people's been getting hurt or killed. And they also want a collapsible steering shaft now, which I've never ran. So once this year's over, all that stuff's becoming mandatory in 2025 at my home tracks, or the one home track here in Hagerstown. And I guess the 25 will be retiring because I can't afford it anymore. That used to be fun, just like model trains is fun, but now it's all a money thing. So everybody has high dollar motors, and I have not what I want to call a high dollar motor, but it's a racing motor. It just ain't high dollar like everybody else. They've got aluminum panels as a body. I'm still running factory steel body panels. So I still got the street doors on there, the street trunk lid, and all that stuff. I mean, it's all gutted, but it's making me heavier, a little bit heavier than the rest of them, which don't bother me because I can't seem to get anywhere anyway. Yes. And that's what's happening, because it's a whole different era. And the insurance companies and all is getting on the racetracks because they're not pushing the equipment. So next year it's going to be mandatory. Unfortunately, my retirement from it might be mandatory. Next year I was thinking about being done with it anyway, because it would have been my 35th year in a race car. But I got an idea this year it might end for the 34th. I didn't want it to be like that because it was 2025, and I wanted the 2025 to be like my number 25. And I'm going to be turning 50 this year, So I would have been 50 next year and 2025 for the year and the 25 for my number. And that's how I wanted to, that's how I was planning it to happen, but it may not happen. I mean, I could show up for testing tune next year, and have one last run at the testing tunes because that's for any cars. I mean, it's just I won't have the right equipment for the actual racing parts. So I may see if I can get special permission just to show up for the testing tunes next year with what equipment I have. I mean, that's not racing, that's just testing the car. So, but if I can get one last run out of it, I can officially say, well, I'm retiring on the year that I wanted to retire, or check my health and see. That was basically what I was going to say about it. The 2025 was going to be see what kind of health I was in at 50 to continue or have to quit. So, being that this equipment thing is coming up, mandatory, it's going to make me quit anyway, or unless I find some major money to buy the full containment seat and the fire compression system and the collapsible steering shaft, and have a aluminum body put on it so the car's better. Right now, I'm the only one that, as far as I know, that's still running an automatic transmission. Everybody else has got 3 speeds. I've got 2 speeds on an automatic. 2 speeds. I've got 3 speeds in drive, but for racing, I run it in low 2, and it's only running in second gear. So you don't have the third gear. For an oval track, you can't run it in drive because it's not going to switch gears quick enough. So yes, everybody is now. I updated my choice of updating was I put headers on the car like everybody else did. I've got a Holley carburetor like everybody else did, a racing carburetor like everybody else did. I didn't get a 3-speed manual because I didn't want a 3-speed manual, and I can't particularly drive one that well. So I didn't want to go that route. I wanted to keep my car stock, even though I put the tubed A-arms up top for the upper ones, left the lower ones stock. I've got a stock rear end. Everybody else is running a 9-inch Ford rear end because they're basically a quick change, similar to a quick change rear end. You open up the front pull the front cover, change your gears, and put the cover back on. It's almost the same thing as a quick change where you pull the cover off the back and switch your gears and gear sets and put the cover back on and go. We're not allowed quick change rears, and I didn't want to bother with changing over to a 9-inch, so I've got the regular old 7.5 still in my car. regular old 7.5 GM. And I still run street tires versus what they run. Some of them still run, a couple of them still run street tires because it's cheaper, but a lot of them is running Hoosiers, the size Hoosier we're allowed to have. Do I have the Hoosiers? Yeah, but they're not rimmed. They're out there in the garage piled up. I want to rim them, but I've got so many street tires that other drivers have given me over the years that it's easier for me to just have those rimmed up. And of course, I'm the only one that runs tubes in my tires. Everybody else runs beadlock rims. But I found out if I run a tube in my tires, I can raise and lower the pressure just like they do. And I don't roll my tire off the rim because the tubes are inside the rims. Now, if I lower them way down too far, then obviously I'm going to have the tube in there too low and the tire's going to be too low, and it'll roll it because it's flat. But I can run 20 some pounds of pressure in my tires with my street tires with tubes versus them running the same amount in their tires with beadlock rims. So I'm trying to keep mine on the cheap, but nobody understands why I don't want to update anything. I can't afford it. I can't afford 1,000 or 1,500 to have somebody cut my car apart and put brackets on there to hold sheet metal up on it. And if that sheet metal gets bent up, guess what? You're straightening sheet metal up, or you're ordering new parts of a body to have it put on. What? I used to be a hobby stock. Now they changed us to a pure stock because what our cars is more the old type pure stock street stock division. And they made the original pure stock division up at Hagerstown Simulates because they're more like the old limited late models. That's what they're somewhat becoming. Even though we got a limited late model division, we've got a crate late model division, and we've got a super late model division that only shows up twice a year. Yeah, there's somewhere. If I wanted to run the Simulates, street stocks, stream stocks, whatever you want to call them, because they're basically they're all up there together. I can run with the street stocks or our Simulate division. I can run with them because I'm way under their rules, being legal and everything. I just won't keep up with them. But for some special events that requires just the street stock showing up, I'm allowed to show up with my pure stock hobby stock and run with them. It's just I won't keep up, but I'll get points and I'll get paid just like a regular driver would do. And basically that's all I do it for is if it's a memorial for somebody that I knew that moved up into that particular division, and I want to I want to pay tribute to a friend, I'll I'll pay the money and go up there and run with them. I mean, will I keep up? No. Will I will I do anything like they do? No. All I have to do is stay down along the guardrail and stay out of their way when they come around because they got wider tires. Which I'm not too sure if I would be able to run it nowadays because or unless I switch to my Hoosier tires because they won't allow um, street tires in theirs. But yes, I do have fun. Uh, I always told my dad when he was alive, I have fun to a point, and the fun to the point meaning is when you're in a wreck or something breaks down, it's not fun to have to work on the car. Other than that, that's the reason I call it fun to a point. Other than that, it's in my blood. Do I want to quit? No. Will I have to quit if I can't afford it? Yeah. Now I can keep the car around. Last year I ran it in the EMMR class, which is the old like your old modifieds and your old simulates and old late models and sprint cars and stuff like that. Of course, they won't run um, sprint cars with us, and they won't run like your open wheel um, cars from the 1800s or whenever they was built, where they're out in the open, no roll cage, or they're just got a soup pot for a helmet and a couple seat belts, and they're couple of them show up. There ain't too many of them, but a couple of them still keep that part of it alive. But I'm out there with old late models, old modifieds, old simulates, old coupes, um, and those kind of cars. Now, do I fit into them? The car does. I just got to watch myself because it's not a race, it's an exhibition type show. So basically, all you do is go out for like 10 laps and you load the car up and you watch the rest of the show and then you leave like you normally would. Is that fun? Yeah, because it's doing something my dad would probably love to be able to do. Go out there in my car and run around there with stuff that he watched when he was, when he was growing up and back in the 50s and 60s and early 70s. He would love being out there with old coupes and modifieds and stuff that he was a pit crewman for a guy named Mert Stein, and he had a number 65. Well, in 1965, they won the championship in 1965, and the number 65 was on the car. And I've got a big blew up black and white picture of all of them standing in victory lane with the championship trophy and whatnot. Well, he was a pit crewman for that guy, and his son, his one son, still runs E-mod modified. I call them E-mods because they're not small block or big block, but they're they're calling them something else, but I've always known them as E-mods because you could put my motor in one of them and I could run with them if I wanted to, if I could afford one of them. Basically, all the modifieds are is probably basically late model. Or I know the small blocks and the big blocks are the actual modified divisions. Um, all they was technically a late model chassis with open wheels, different type body, and you sat in the middle of them. That's basically all modified is. Because basically they probably put late model motors or something in them back then. If you could probably pull one and put it in the other one, where a sprint car is a total different thing, but cool. So like I said, it's fun, but fun to a point when you got to start working on stuff or replacing stuff and spending more money on a budget. And right now, I don't have a budget because I don't have a job. I'm broke. If I make test and tune with the car, I mean, I don't have to worry about buying a lot of gas. I don't have to worry about a lot of stuff. Just go up, test the car, load it back up, come home. And if I don't want to race a lot this year, which I doubt I will be able to because of money and a job and the way things are, I can say at least I hit the track once or twice. And to me, that covers, that covers another year in my career, uh, even though it ain't a whole year, a whole season. But I can say I hit the car and the car hit the track and came back home in one piece. Yeah, it's going to be hard, but I came to a point when after I lost my dad, I decided to try to just continue on as long as I could without him. I mean, I get help at the track and I can get help outside the track. But I was one of them that grew up and don't go and ask for help. If it's if it's offered to me, then I'll take it. If it's something, I know that somebody can do. Other than that, a lot of times I probably refused help. I probably shouldn't have, but it's one of those deals where you're used to being by yourself and doing stuff yourself and teaching yourself stuff. My dad was a mechanic, so it helped when we had the older type cars, and he knew more or less what to do with them, to the motors and the bodies and stuff like that. When it comes to this more faster stuff, and it would probably almost have to be my motor builder, which is my friend down the road. So I mean, I can take my car to my motor builder, who is my one of my best friends. Um, because his son runs a crate late model now. He don't run in the same division as me anymore. So he'll still help me. It was one of his son's old winning motors, but the problem is, for me to win in it, I would have to have a whole different car, whole different setup, an upscale, upgraded piece of equipment underneath of me for that motor and a 3-speed. Because with an automatic, you've got vacuum. With power brakes, you got vacuum. If I could figure out how to get rid of the vacuum hoses that's on the motor and put them on a regular rotary 12-volt vacuum pump, which I've looked into, which is expensive because it's going to constantly, pump. It would be great because it might open the motor up a little more. You won't have that vacuum suck down on the horsepower. Even if I could do that, I mean, I'm not sure if I would really tell a difference if I'm gaining horsepower or if I'm not. So, hey, welcome in, Al. So like you said, it's pride, it's fun, it's it's more or less all money type stuff nowadays, but for me it's it's all about trying to stay old school but still be a competitor. In other words, competitor being used as showing up, making another car, trying and giving my 100% on the night that I'm up there, even though I know I'm not going to get very far or advance into a better position, finishing position, because I run last and I can't keep up. But after 33 years of running last, I'm pretty sure I'm probably used to being there by now. I mean, I didn't always run last. There was a few years back that I went down Winchester Speedway in Virginia. Don't get that Winchester mixed up with the one in Indiana and the other one that closed somewhere else. But this one's in Virginia. They call it Winchester VA Speedway, I think. So to keep the websites apart. But yeah, I went down there and I had a hand-me-down rebuilt motor from a championship car, and I did pretty good, but you always know, and you always know when you're running better than you're normally used to, that something is going to go wrong. Well, it went wrong that night. I was passing cars that I never do or never did before. And when I was passing cars and heading up through, not running completely last and getting lapped, I was actually up going into the field because of cautions and running real good. And that night, the motor left loose on the backstretch going into turn 3. And soon as I heard somebody call me on the radio, "You're leaking a lot of fluid," I didn't even have no idea because when you go into the corners, you don't have time to really look over at your gauges the whole time. I just kind of glimpse over towards them. Well, when I glimpsed over, everything was black. It was just dark. And I was there pressing the button. I thought maybe I had, it might have shut down for some reason. Well, it did. It blew. But yeah, now I see the smoke. But sometimes you don't even get an indication of your gauges or anything just going dead. I mean, when I just happened to look over when they said you're leaking a lot of fluid, I didn't think no more about it. When you know, with all those loud motors around me at the time, you could not hear because I was still running manifolds. We were still running manifold pipes at that time, but their motors was louder because they wasn't running pipes off their manifolds. They was running short pipes. I still had a tailpipe, so I would stay with the rules. Well, now I don't have no tailpipes. Now I have a big set of headers. So now my motor's loud. I can't get the car to move any faster than what it's moving. So till I till I do all those upgrades, and the only way I'd be able to upgrade that kind of stuff, I would have to sell all my stuff and put that money towards somebody else's already built, ready to go car that's already updated with the body and the 3 speed and that kind of stuff. That would be the only way I could ever upgrade. And the price that they want for stuff after they use it, I mean, without the motor, is it's high prices because they've got good stuff in it in the car. They don't run junk. For me, I'm still running partially stock and partially racing stuff, and it probably. I mean, when it gets to the point, I'll know it's time. I'll know it's time to just hang the helmet up and get rid of all of it. Like I said, I could run it with the EMM R cars, the museum exhibition stuff that's from York, Pennsylvania, or York Springs, Pennsylvania, I guess it is. They got their own museum with stuff in it. And matter of fact, the same car that was rebuilt by the guy that my dad pit crewed for, they rebuilt a modified that he drove, and it's up there in that museum, the same car, just like it was back then. They rebuilt it from the ground up and made it a showroom museum piece. So, because he's in the Hall of Fame and what have you. So, but because my Monte Carlo is a 40-plus-year-old car, and I still have the original body panels on it, I will fit right into the EMMR cars as an oldie. The motor ain't an oldie, but the car is for the years. Yeah, the motor's a 358, so it's a racing motor, so I'm just glad that, I mean, at that time, when when I was actually going to quit because I didn't have no money for another car. This was before I got this Monte Carlo from a friend that had it, that actually raced it um, years ago. I had wrecked one night up in the third and fourth turn at one of the big end of the year races. Somebody was running a 3-speed clutch and they got spun out up in the fourth turn. I didn't know that they was up there, and the guy must have popped the clutch to try to get the car started, and he was rolling down the track from the upper fourth turn area down towards the lower guardrail. Well, when I came around, I still had a green light and I was concentrating. Well, about that time, when I went into the fourth turn, he rolled down and stopped me. And I lost the whole front end of my little Buick Regal that I had. So that was a very sad, depressing, upsetting night for me. And of course, that guy, he kept on rolling and finally hit the bottom guardrail. And then he got the car started, pulled away, went back into the pit area with all kinds of damage. Like, well, I guess you're done for tonight too, there, buddy. You're the one that hit me. You just kind of stopped me. But I did not see him rolling down the track. When you got a helmet on and you got a helmet thing on your seat or so your head don't, it's sort of similar to the full containment stuff or Hans device thing, but it's a support on my seat. Well, when you got that in your way and you can't glimpse over and you're just concentrating and running real good, trying to keep up. And I evidently was running good that night. I was rocking and rolling with it. And he popped the clutch and started rolling. And I just stopped right in the tracks, going around the corner full speed. Well, now what would have been nice, and all racetracks seem to have this problem. They will wait to see if whoever brings out or causes a caution or gets swung around or spun around or whatever. They'll wait to see if they'll move before they act and try to complete a lap before they even throw the caution. So they don't have to lose a lap in time. I'm sorry, but when an official sees a car setting up against the upper guardrail, that yellow flag ought to be waving right then and there, because you don't know how hard they hit. We can't communicate with them, but they can communicate with us by a one-way radio. but they can communicate with one another by another frequency with their regular radios. But somebody ought to at least get on the radio and say, we got a possible caution, or we have a caution. We got a car setting up in the upper part of the fourth turn. Use caution. But when somebody gets spun around like that and ends up in a guardrail, they need to call that right away as a caution. I mean, if he ain't on fire, or if he didn't slam into the thing. Okay. I thank you all for coming in, whoever might still be here. Al and Sean and Randy earlier. But yeah, it was good having a conversation with you, buddy. Glad you could come in. I'm going to be shutting this down anyway because it's past. I've been going at this for 2 hours. Wow, I was only supposed to be on till 8. Oh well. Hey, I ain't going to complain. 3 of you showing up. That's more than I got last couple times I tried. Oh, I got 0 or 1. Okay, well, have a good one. I'm hoping next Thursday. I'm going to try to get back on track and try to start doing these normally again, but I definitely going to have to make a video a few days ahead, at least, I don't know, make it like Sunday and post Monday or morning or something. That way everybody knows all week to look. Okay, take care. I'm going to shut this down.